state your name and your title for the record?
Certainly. My name is Ramona Tyson, and I serve as the Chief Strategy Officer for the DeKalb County School District.
What is your place of employment?
My place of employment is the DeKalb County School District.
How long have you worked for the DeKalb County School System?
I have been employed with the school district on 2 different tours, originally started in 1987 to 1989, and then again 1993 to present.
All right. What is your role with the DeKalb County School System in relation to the SACS accreditation currently under review by Advanced Ed?
Interim Superintendent Mr. Michael L. Thurman appointed me as the lead administrator to lead an appointed internal team that he assembled to address the 11 required actions that the district was served by Advanced Ed in December of 2012.
All right. Is that what I believe is referred to as the SACS core team?
It is.
And that's comprised of how many individuals?
That team, again, which is appointed by internal staff members, is a team of 45 now. We started out with 28, and we are now a 45-member team.
All right. The Advanced Ed report that placed DeKalb County on accredited probation lists 11 required action items. Of those items, are they board issues? Are they system issues? Is it a blend of both?
It is a blend of both. There are 11 required actions. Actions 1 through 5 deal with board governance. Actions 6 through 10 deal with administration. And action number 11 we consider to be both the board and the administration.
All right. Was the SACS core team, and for purposes of ease of reference, if Your Honor will indulge me, I think we can refer to the board that existed prior to the governor suspending it and appointing replacement members as the old board. And for ease of reference, I think I'd like to refer to the replacement board, the board comprising the replacement board members as the new board. Was the SACS core team formed under the direction and control of the old board, or was it formed after the new board was constituted?
The SACS core team was formed under the new board, again, appointed by the superintendent.
And that would be Superintendent Thurman?
Superintendent Thurman.
All right. How often does the SACS core team meet?
We meet every Wednesday, and we have been meeting since February. We meet every Wednesday as a core team, and every Tuesday we have weekly conference calls to our technical assistant team at SACS. We were assigned 2 individuals from SACS to be assistants and help with us as we work through these 11 required actions. So on Tuesday we hold weekly conference calls with them. On Wednesdays we meet as a team. The superintendent attends those weekly meetings as well on Wednesdays. And then under that core team we have lots of subcommittee teams that span out to do the actionable work. As
a member of the DeKalb County administration, you had the opportunity to work closely with both the old and the new board?
Correct.
All right. In your own words, could you describe the differences between the old board and the new board?
Well, let me say, as an employee of the district, and we get up every day to come work for kids. We work for past, present, and future boards. We work for past, present, and future superintendents. When you work under a sitting board, you work under the culture of that board, and you work to do work for children. And so when we look at the dynamics of whatever's going on an old board versus a new board, you do everything you can to meet the requirements that's necessary in order to be an effective district. So that's a situation where I can tell you for the various positions that I've had in the school district, it just depends on the culture that you're working with. We've been in crisis for a very long time in DeKalb County. I have been on the front line in various roles as the district has gone through that crisis, and we're coming out of it now. That's the good news. And there's good work that's occurred with the old board. There are challenges that occurred with the old board. There's good work that's going on with the new board, and I suspect, depending on whatever happens here now in the future, we'll have to make adjustments to ensure that we're getting great work done for kids.
In terms of meeting the 11 required action items, including the 6 that specifically relate to the board and board governance. If you were going to, and knowing that the system and the board have to satisfy SACs in regards to those action items to be removed from accredited probation, which board do you think made more progress after the initial placing the system on accredited advisement through the system being placed on accredited probation? Did the old board make more progress in addressing the required action items during the 2+ years that they were on accredited advisement and then accredited probation? Or has the new board made more progress during the 3 months that they have been in place under accredited probation?
Well, I'm going to come forward and work backward, if I may. Under the present status of accredited probation that the district was placed on in December, the real work, grassroots work, didn't begin until literally February, when Mr. Thurman appointed a core team. So in all fairness to that, the work that we have demonstrated under accredited probation is really marked from February of this year to present. There were discussions of ramping up to begin that work under the old board, but the former superintendent did not direct staff to begin that work. The direction we received to go to work on those required actions were not received until Mr. Thurman took place as the interim superintendent.
So in terms of actual, not just talking about it, but in terms of addressing the required action items, it would be your testimony, it would be fair to say more of that work has been done under the new board than the old board.
That work has been done under the new board based on, and this is real important, the staff can only take direction from the superintendent. The staff does not take direction from the board.
Right.
And in my role, being appointed as lead of that team, I did not get that direction until Mr. Thurman appointed me to do that in February of 2000 this year.
All right.
Let me interrupt. I hate to do that, but the actual appointment of the new board, is that going to be addressed in the evidence packet that you've already put in? I guess what I want to know is, when was the new board put in place?
It's actually mentioned in the interim status report. That is, I believe, sorry, my co-counsel has walked out with my exhibit pack, but it is one of the exhibits.
Do you know it off the top of your head? Is that something I can...
It's going to be in March of 2013. The board was suspended in February.
You think it was March 13th?
It is March 13th.
Okay.
And it's going to be in the tab 12, the institution progress report.
Okay, so March 13th is when we're talking about a new board kicking in.
Yes.
Appointed board.
There was a gap during the time that the governor was actually taking recommendations on replacement board members, that the board, in effect, constituted 3 board members.
Gotcha.
That was from February to March of this year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Tyson, are you familiar with the policies that were in place under the old board in regards to chain of command and conflict of interest?
Yes, I am familiar.
Was there a board policy dealing specifically with nepotism under the old board?
There was not a nepotism policy in place that specifically was named the nepotism policy. Nepotism was addressed under the staff, board staff conflict of interest policy.
I believe Dr. Speaks testified on redirect to that earlier, where she talked about the board would identify certain individuals to pull off for employment votes so that the board could know they were voting on it. In your opinion, was this done to comply with a conflict of interest provision, or was this designed to notify the board that there may be issues regarding the state law that said board members could lose their position if family members of a certain kind were elevated to system administration positions.
I don't know about the state law in the latter. What I do know, though, is that the policy that deals with conflict of interest was in place and still is in place, so that when relatives of employees at that time, executive director or higher, or relatives of a board member, it was required by policy that those individuals be disclosed to the board in a full board meeting, and the board had to approve it.
All right. Are you aware whether Sachs had identified that the board needed a separate nepotism policy in any of its 3 reports, whether it was the accredited advisement report, the interim report, or the accredited probation report? Had Sachs indicated that the board needed to adopt a nepotism policy specifically?
Well, in Sachs, across several renditions, as you brought up, Sachs has made it very clear to the district that there is an issue of nepotism in the district, and that the district needed to address that required action with a corrective, what is entitled a corrective action plan. In August of 2011, the board did revisit the board conflict of interest policy at that time, and it was updated. But a true nepotism policy was not approved by the board until May 2013.
So that would be a nepotism policy actually adopted by the new board?
That is correct.
All right. Are you aware that the DeKalb County grand jury reports also identified the issue of nepotism and the lack of nepotism policy as an issue with the old board?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay. Dr. Speaks had testified about issues that she had with the old board's adoption of the budget, that there was certain information that the board or individual members of the board had requested, but that was never forthcoming. In the board's administrative oversight of the school system, did the board as a whole or individual board members say, let us not adopt this budget until we get our answers?
Under oath, I don't know if I can accurately answer that. When you think about the budget development cycle, that a typical budget development cycle goes over at least 3 to 4 months, and that's lots of meetings and lots of committee of the whole board meetings with the board, actual financial reports that are given to the board at the regular work session and business meetings. And to accurately be able to answer that succinctly, I'm not sure.
To your knowledge, was a budget ever tabled and not voted on because of the failure of system administrative staff to give board members answers to their budget questions?
I think I can recall that that board members have voted against, some board members have voted against the budget, and the budget was intended to be approved at said date and did not get approved at said date, and was extended a couple more months so that information could be given for them to be able to take a vote.
Do you remember what information those board members were wanting to have at that point?
Not without going back and looking at a video.
All right. In terms of the chain of command issues identified by Sachs, what were some of the issues with the old board that Sachs or the grand jury had identified, or that you in your own personal experience had observed in regards to the board versus chain of command?
I need you to repeat that one more time.
I apologize, that was a little convoluted. In terms of the old board and the chain of command issues identified by Sachs in all 3 of their reports, what were your personal observations regarding the old board and any issues that they may have had with chain of command regarding system personnel?
Well, it's clearly known that the board has one employee, and that's the superintendent. And the superintendent commands the organization, which in our case is nearly 14,000 employees. It's clearly understood that if the board has an inquiry, it should be directed to the board chair and then to the board chair to the superintendent. Sometimes the superintendent can delegate that authority to a staff member to contact a board member. I can't answer for other superintendents other than to say that they have exercised delegating that authority for them to contact them. In some cases, more than likely though, the superintendent wants the board to come directly to them. That is the practice that should be followed under any board. Whether or not it was old board versus new board, I really believe the superintendent would have to answer the question if the old board, and I wasn't the superintendent under the one that you were questioning now, if that was undermined or if that wasn't followed. I can't answer for her.
You're talking about Superintendent Atkinson?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is the status we were placed on probation under Superintendent Atkinson.
All right. So you're saying you have no evidence that the board, whether you want to call it micromanaged, violated the chain of command, other than what you read in the SACS report?
I have no evidence in the form of, you mean emails?
No, I'm talking about
or
personal observation.
just personal observations.
Did you know of instances where the old board had violated the chain of command, micromanaged system employees, gone around the superintendent? I'm asking in your personal
in my personal
knowledge.
In my personal knowledge, I don't have evidence of that. Do I have a perception? Some cases, yes. Maybe some cases, no. A perception,
Well,
perhaps.
let me try to clarify, because you're talking about two extremes here.
Okay.
A perception is what Dr. Speaks was referring to, and it's this nebulous, I just woke up this morning with a feeling, versus you were talking about evidence. I'm not asking you about that. I'm asking, to your knowledge, was someone working on a project that had been assigned by the board, not the superintendent? Were you aware of an instance where the board had directed an employee to go do something? I'm not asking you to provide probative evidence today in terms of an email or letter. I'm asking your personal knowledge.
In that regards, the answer would be no. The answer would be no. I'm not aware that the board would assign a project to a staff member to go do. Now, what I do know is that it was common that if a board member wanted more information, I have observed that board members would contact staff about those if they had questions about something, particularly about agenda items that were coming up for approval. I have observed that.
Under the old board or under the new board?
Under the old board.
One of the required action items dealt with board training. Has the system or the new board undertaken any steps to satisfy that requirement?
The new board?
Yes.
Yes. In fact, they are in Savannah right now at the Georgia School Boards Association annual conference. And today they are actually going through their new board member orientation training. On yesterday, they went through a whole board training with the superintendent, and that consists of GSBA doing training on board roles, board responsibilities, everything from superintendent evaluation to school finances. Georgia Department of Education is actually training them this afternoon on Georgia school finances. So they're there yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Saturday.
All right. Your Honor, if I may have 1 minute to talk to my co-counsel.
Yes.
The SACS report, as well as Dr. Elgard's testimony, Dr. Speak's testimony, referred to the fact that the board had standing committees dealing with certain subject areas falling within the entire board's purview. In your opinion, what were some of the issues, either in your experience or what SACS identified as issues with the board having those permanent subcommittees?
Well, first, we did have a required action where the board was asked to eliminate working committees, and the new board has eliminated working committees and put a provision in for finite ad hoc committees when necessary. In the past, and I believe there were four committees, maybe five. What tended to happen, and I agree with Dr. Speaks on this piece, is that there would be a duplication of work. The committees would meet 3 to 4 board members. They would work, but they couldn't take any action. They still had to bring all that work back before the full board. And so it was like doing the work twice whenever they took upon themselves within their different committees to look at a specific item for the school district. That can be very laborious for staff when you have to do things in duplicates. Present it once to a committee and then come back and do it all over again in front of the full board. So it could be a very voluminous and duplicate work for the administration.
Did Advance Ed and SACS also identify that these standing committees had the capacity and in the past had in fact done so to micromanage system personnel?
And I believe that is what is referenced in their review reports upon coming and conducting an investigation that came out in their reports, that the work of those committees again appeared to have presented micromanagement.
So are you saying that they were micromanaging, or they just were perceived to be micromanaging?
Based on the report that SACS gave us, yes, they were perceived as micromanaging.
So in your opinion, they were not actually micromanaging?
In some cases, yes. Depending on who was running what committee, it could, yes. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay, so is your testimony that sometimes these policy or standing committees were used to violate chain of command and to micromanage system employees?
From my opinion, that's what you're asking, right?
I'm asking your testimony.
Yeah, my testimony. There were instances that, yes, it appeared that way.
Your Honor, we have nothing further of this witness at this time.
Okay. Dr. Speaks, now again, the opportunity for cross-examination with the same caveats as last time.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Tyson, you just mentioned about board training in Savannah, other trainings by GSBA. Is this standard training of all board members? So the old board had the same training as well?
It is standard training for all board members in the state of Georgia. And yes, new board is going through it now. And any individuals that have served on the board in an old board capacity would have gone through that same training.
Thank you. We worked together as employees of the school district prior to my becoming a board member, and again as a board member, and you served as interim superintendent. So technically then I was, as a board member, your boss. Did I ever attempt to micromanage your administration, ever threaten you, or conduct myself in any way that would make you regard me as an unfit board member?
No.
Did you feel it was possible to work with me as a board member?
No.
Did you feel it was possible to work with me as when I served as a board member?
Repeat that one more time.
Do you feel it was possible to work with me when I was a board member?
Yes.
When you,
Yes.
have you ever witnessed any conduct on my part that you feel would lead to a loss of accreditation for the school district?
On your part
On
as
my
an
part,
individual?
individually, yes.
No.
In your opinion, am I qualified? Do you think I am qualified to be a member of the DeKalb Board of Education?
I don't qualify board members. I'm not sure if that's a fair question for me to decide whether or not a individual person should serve on the Board of Education or not.
Okay, let me maybe restate it a different way. Based on what you know are the qualifications of a board member, do you feel that I hold those qualifications to be a qualified member of the DeKalb Board of Education?
I would assume yes.
That's all I have.
All right, I have a question. Do you have an opinion, if you have one? You don't have to have one, okay, on this question. As to whether or not Dr. Speaks would affect negatively or positively the ability of the school board to reattain its accreditation if she went back on the board?
We have, well, may I state it in the narrative?
Yeah.
Okay, we have begun the work since February to turn the trajectory of this school district in a positive manner to respond to those 11 required actions. We are not moving by hope. We are moving by actionable, deliberate work to meet those required actions. We are working under a superintendent and a board that understands what it's going to take to get the district back where it needs to be. That has been our mode of operation since Superintendent Thurman said go to work and lead the team. We feel very confident that we will get there when they come back in December for our next visit. With all that has happened in the past, not just with the old board, but the boards before them and the boards before them, we do not want to lose the momentum of the work that we put in place. And I can't speak for anyone but me and the person that's put in charge by Superintendent Thurman, and that is whoever is serving on that board. They have to come back and understand that the board must hold board governance and leadership at the highest levels of attainment. We cannot get there with non-collaboration and non-cohesion. We're in a good place, and we believe we can get there. Whether or not an old board member can impact that or not, I don't know what gains they've made from when they left, when we were in complete chaos, to where we are right now. But they have to mirror and mimic the good work that's going on with the new board now.
Any questions from either side in light of my question? Witness.
We have nothing further
Any
for this
redirect?
witness.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.